Okay, today we are going to talk about solving one- and two-step equations. This is the first time for me to use this Mobi to record a video, so if it has some glitches, we will work those kinks out as we go. But today in class we solved one- and two-step equations. Things to remember when solving equations. The golden rule of algebra is if you do it to one side, you have to do it to the other. We talked about how it's a balance. If you had something that was balanced out and you added something to one side, you would have to add it to the other to even out that balance. Same thing, if you took it away, one side's going to go up, the other side's going to go down, so you have to take away the same thing from the other side. Works is just the same in math. So the steps that we used were to, number one, draw a line through the equal sign. That helps you visually see once you add it to one side, you add it to the other. Once you take it away from one side, you take it away from the other. If you multiply to one side, you multiply to the other. And the same math should be represented on both sides of that line. Next, we're going to circle the variable to isolate, so we know that we have to get it all by itself. And lastly, we're going to undo the math. Remember, multiplication and division undo each other. Addition and subtraction undo each other. So if you're adding on one side, to get rid of it, you subtract. If you do it to one side, do it to the other. Some other things that we have to be aware of is invisible math. Invisible math means if you have a minus x, that there's that invisible 1 in front of that x. There's a bunch of different invisible math that we'll go through this year, but that's going to be the main one that affects us with solving equations. So let's just do a couple of examples together. So we have 15 equals x minus 5. My first step is to draw a line through the equal sign. I want to isolate the x, so I'm going to go ahead and circle that x, knowing that I want to get it by itself. So for me to get x alone, all I have to get rid of is this minus 5. Well, to undo subtraction, I add, so I'm going to add 5, and if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. So, working myself left from right, 15 plus 5 is 20. Here's my line, I can bring my equal sign. Here's my x, I just bring it down. And the minus 5 plus 5 cancels each other out. We undid that, so it goes away. So my final answer is 20 equals x. Don't forget, you can always double check that by throwing that 20 back in there. Is 20 minus 5 15? Yes, it is, so we are good to go. Okay, next question was 30 equals 17 plus r. Once again, first step is to draw that line through my equal sign. I'm going to circle this r here because I want to get it all by itself. This plus sign is saying that my r is positive, so I have a positive 1r in that invisible math, which means we are good to go. The only thing I have to do is get rid of this 17. Well, if I have 17, to get rid of it, I would subtract 17. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. 30 minus 17 is 13 equals 17 minus 17 goes away, and my r just comes down. So 13 is equal to r. Same concept here. The only difference is I have a negative sign, so I wanted to kind of keep that in mind. Draw my line through my equal sign. Decide I want to get x by itself. It's a plus x, so we're good. The only thing I have to get rid of is this 7. If I have 7, I'm going to subtract 7. If I do it to one side, I do it to the other. Negative 6 minus 17 is a negative 13 is equal to x. Put that negative 13 back in there. 7 plus a negative 13 would be the same thing as 7 minus 13, which gives me a negative 6. Alright, this looks a little bit different. Like we talked about in class, you will not see a division sign in algebra. The little division sign that looks like this guy right here, he does not exist in algebra. We only use fractions. So this k over 2 means k divided by 2. So I'm going to draw my line through my equal sign. I'm going to circle the k because I want to get it by itself. So I need to undo dividing by 2, which means I'm going to multiply by 2. And if I do it on one side, I have to do it on the other. Multiplying by 2, this is the same thing as 2 over 1, so those 2's cancel each other out, leaving me with a 9. So k is equal to 9. Plug that back in. 9 over 2 equals 9 over 2. Next I have 12n equals 240. Draw that line through my equal sign. I want to get this n all by itself. It is connected to that 12. When you have a number and a variable together without any symbols, it represents multiplication. So to undo multiplication, we divide. So on this side, I'm dividing by 12. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. 12 divided by 12 is 1, so that leaves me with the 1n, just like I want. 240 divided by 12 is 20. So n is equal to 20. X over 4 is equal to -7. Draw my line through my equal sign. X over 4 is division, so to undo division, I multiply. If I do it to one side, I do it to the other. These 4's cancel each other out, leaving me with x equal to a negative times a positive is a negative. 7 times 4 is 28. So that's a pretty good set of one-step equations. Now we're going to move into some multi-step or two-step equations. Same process we're doing here. Draw my line through my equal sign. I want to get this p all by itself. That p is attached to that -2. Just like we talked about a baby with its blanket or a baby with its pacifier. When they are attached, you want to wait until the last minute until you have to pull that thing away. So we are going to work this in layers, meaning this -2 that's attached to the p, we're going to wait till the end to do that. We're going to get rid of this -1 first. If I have a -1, to get rid of it, I add 1. If I do it to one side, I do it to the other. -1 plus 1 goes away, leaves me -2p is equal to -3 plus 1 is a -2. -2p means -2 times p, so to undo that, I'm going to divide. If I do it to one side, I do it to the other. -2 and -2 cancel each other out, leaving me p is equal to a -2 over a -2 becomes a positive 1. Draw my line through my equal sign. I want to get this a all by itself. It's attached there to that 4, so we're going to deal in layers. We're going to get rid of this +2 first. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 2. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. A over 4 is equal to, that 2 minus 2 went away. 0 minus 2 is -2. A over 4 means a divided by 4, so to undo division, I multiply. If I do it on one side, I do it to the other. These 4's cancel out, leaving me an a is equal to a negative times a positive is a negative. 2 times 4 is 8. This one's a little bit tricky because it looks like it would just be a one-step equation. However, 5 minus k equals 6. I draw my line through that equal sign. I circle that k because I want to get it by itself. Well, I've got to get rid of the 5, but then I'm still going to have a negative sign there. So I have to get rid of that -2. I don't want to know what -k is. I want to know what just k is. So I'm going to come through here. I'm going to subtract a 5 from both sides to start, filling it back in layers. 5 minus 5 goes away. I have -k is equal to 1. This is that invisible math that we talked about. Don't forget there's an invisible little 1 right here in front of that k. So we're going to come over here and we're going to divide by -1. If I do it to one side, I do it to the other. -1 divided by -1, negative divided by a negative becomes a positive, and then a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So k is equal to -1. And lastly, this n plus 7 is your numerator, so we're going to get rid of it first. It's kind of grouped with that n. So peeling it back in layers would get us to get rid of this 2 first. So I'm coming in, drawing a line through my equal sign, circling my n to get it by itself. I'm going to get rid of this fraction first by multiplying by 2. Remember, it's in reverse order of operations. These 2's cancel each other out, leaving me n plus 7 is equal to negative 14. I'm going to subtract the 7 from both sides. That leaves me with n is equal to negative 21, because a negative minus a negative is increasing on that negative side. Alright, well that's it for today's lesson. Hope you enjoyed.